Hi, everyone. This is Rae Luskin, the creative activist turning pain to purpose. And today, my special guest is Sarah Prout. And as you know, I always start with a little poem. So here goes. She walked through abuse and betrayal, standing at the edge of losing everything. Yet she held one quiet truth: the universe meets you where courage begins. From the darkness, she rose, turning wounds into wisdom and hope into direction. Now she reminds us that gratitude and self love can rebuild our life. When a woman trusts her own voice, the universe rises to meet her light. So I am so excited today. I've been a fan of Sarah's for a long time. I've studied her work and done many of her courses. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She's a best-selling author, artist, manifestation expert, and the host of popular Manifest podcast. Her new book, Dear Universe 365, A Year of Mini Meditations to Manifest Your Best Life, is more than just a book. It's a daily lifeline for anyone navigating change, healing, and transformation. So please give a warm welcome to Sarah Prout.
Oh, thank you, Ray. My goodness, that poem was so beautiful. I got teary. That's so
Oh,
beautiful. Thank you so much for doing that.
you're welcome. I started just doing general poems and then I got very specific. Each time I try and research a little bit about the person, which I knew you already, but,
Yeah.
and try and create something that's personal because that's what creative activists do. So, um,
Yeah.
I would love you to start talking about your new book, Dear Universe, and tell us why you
Good idea.
said this is the book
Mhm.
that you needed to write and read right now. So could you tell us a little about that?
Absolutely. And that's such a beautiful thing to start with too, because it's really with as a creative, it's like you're drawn by the universe to create what's needed sometimes. And for me, I was traveling through a separation. I was living under the same roof as my ex-husband. And I was tasked with writing this manuscript. And so it's like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to pull all of my resources in a very difficult time in my life? But I thought, you know what? I'm going to write the book that other people need to read during their darkest time, during their dark night of the soul, or when they feel disconnected, and give them an anchor point. So the book is really taking things day by day, and every day has a power word to aim for. So you embody that word, that essence, and you connect with the universe.
Okay, so I'm just curious, is there a specific power word that you've been connected to more recently?
There's so many, and it changes day to day. Sometimes it changes almost hourly because in here it's divided into 12 different sections. So there's everything from gratitude and appreciation, which I know you work in those realms too, Ray, to trust and confidence. I'm just flipping through randomly here to togetherness and charisma. It's just these anchor points that can go, you know what? I'm going to embody this energy and this essence today and head in that direction. So it's a little bit like leading the witness, but sometimes we need that as like a point of direction to just set the tone for our day.
Well, I have your book in my bathroom, so I pull yours out every day, the one with the 200 meditations. And
Yes.
it's like an oracle card for me when I pull
Yes.
it up. And, it's like, oh, this is what I really did need to hear today. Or, oh, I got to think about that. So I love that you've continued that process because I think it's really important for anybody who's traveling in a time of uncertainty, or
Mm.
healing from a trauma or whatever it is. So, um, let's just talk about there. I know what manifesting is, but there are a lot of people who may not know what that is. So why don't you explain what manifesting is?
Sure. I love talking about this. I've been talking about
I
this for 20 years now, and I never run out of things to say. So, manifesting is really the awareness that everything is energy and like attracts like. And so we experience our day-to-day life with thoughts and feelings, emotions, actions, and we are attracting to us what is our predominant vibrational set point. So everything you think and feel becomes an outcome, becomes that manifestation. It is very similar to creating art because you are the channel and everything in your life becomes a creation. Everything in your life is a manifestation. So it works, it simply put, like attracts like, you get what you think about the most.
Right. And I do believe we are the creators of our own. And that's why I've done the creative activist turning pain to purpose, because I want to share with people your past does not define your future. You are not
Mhm.
stuck in those old stories of trauma, abuse, they wronged me, whatever it was, all those stories, we have a choice every single moment to
Hmm.
from that pain. And I call that sort of the messy middle. It's sort of like,
Yeah.
how, I guess what would be your thoughts? How do you actually move from that dark place and feel disconnected to hope? What are some of the
Mm-mm.
tools that you use? I know you have your own rituals, so I'd love for you to share some of that with people.
Sure. So it varies from day to day. And sometimes it is allowing myself to have those moments of hopelessness, to allow the emotion, the tears to come through because it's almost like a cleansing or a purging to get it out. And then other tools that I use are laughter. I love laughing. I love art. I've been creating a lot of art lately. I've got paint in my hands right now. It's a great feeling. It's wonderful. It's wonderful because it's movement. And I think that if you ever go through those seasons of grief or struggle or fear, movement and creativity is some of the best things that you can do to truly bring that into gear. Because I think a lot of people mentalize the process of healing, thinking like, well, I've got to do X amount of therapy sessions before I'm all better and I'm all healed. And there is no goalpost. You don't get there and go, oh, it's a miracle. I'm better. I'm back to who I was because you're not. You're evolving and you're changing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's four steps forward, two back, and
Yeah, very much
that
so.
is what healing is, at least in my experience. I sort of look at it as a spiral, sometimes up, sometimes down, and
Yeah, sometimes sideways.
steps, that too. Uh, and I think that there's something to be said because some of the things you've asked people to do over the time is, about journaling, and
Yes.
telling your story. I think when you told your story about your first husband, that was brave, that was courageous, and people weren't necessarily doing that. And I think that's really important. And that's part of the reason I do this because I think stories matter. And yes, it can be a verbal story, it can be music, it can be dance, it could be any form of creative expression. But I would love people to tell us, what did it take for you to share your story, or even, some of the new challenges you're going through? Because you're such a
Yeah.
public figure, so yeah.
It's it's a decision point. And looking back now, I didn't realize some of the unintended consequences of being so public about my story. I know that it helped a lot of people, but there was also, especially in the background, a lot of collateral damage that happened in my family structure with my children. So, if I had my time over again, I might do it a little bit differently. And I might not have been too expressive with the details of the story. But at
Mm.
the same time, when you have been through any kind of family violence or toxic family dynamic, there is a way that you can tell your story, your part of the story, without it impacting other people. And I think that's really important for anybody that's got a story to share, that they think about the implications of how that's going to affect the other people that are involved in that narrative.
Right. I know several people who waited till that person died or the last person, passed that would be affected by you sharing your story. And I know I was very conscious myself about
Mm.
sharing my story and, being very public about it. I was like, oh, but parts of my story that I didn't talk about at the time was my mother's physical abuse of me. I talked about my
Yeah.
grandfather. That was easy, but my mother
Mhm.
was so close and that it was very challenging. And it took me many years to even acknowledge that it really happened,
Mm.
but yeah, so it's an ongoing process. And I know for me, the first time I told my story, I was shaking in my boots. I thought I was going to
Yeah.
throw up. It was like, oh
Hmm.
my God, and I did it in a public forum where I invited my mother and my sister to hear
Oh,
my story.
wow.
You
Oh,
know,
that's brave.
and it
Yep.
was like, because I had told them, but having me tell the story and the consequences of it, just, they were like, my mother just was blown away. Like, I didn't know you experienced all that, and all the
Mm.
pain and angst and, those kinds of things. And yeah, I mean, there is silence to protect ourselves, but there's also strength in sharing those stories. It's a both and.
Very much. And with the situation in my first marriage with my first husband, like we've come full circle now. We actually have respect for each other now as human beings because we are two different people. I'm not a, young 20-year-old girl anymore. And he's, we've changed and evolved. And we went through that situation, that chapter of our life because we needed to. And I think about it now in terms of like how horrific those experiences were, some of them that I shared in my first book. I wouldn't change anything for the world because all of the people that it's helped, in that bravery, just like you did. It's showing that humanity. And I think it's in sharing our humanity that we at least open up that tiny window for other people to step into healing.
Right. I think so too. And without our stories, and if you've got numbers, 1 in 3 women, one in this, I mean, it's
Yeah.
mind-boggling. And I'm not saying men are not, victims of
Yeah.
abuse, but in our time today, I believe strongly with the misogynist world we're living in right now, that
Oh, yeah.
as women have to speak up because no one else will speak for us. And you can see how they tried to silence the Epstein survivors and, the power of us together. And I think that's what I'm encouraged by right now is everybody, all those people who kept silent finally just said, I've had enough.
Mm,
And that's the only way we're going to change the world. If we share these stories and show that, we're not powerless, so
mm,
I think that's really important and that we have a voice in whatever way you want to tell it. And I'm never saying you have to go public with your big story. But if you can share your story with one person, like like in a 12-step program, they ask you to share, your 4th step, which you can tell your story to one other
mhm,
person and have them witness it. I believe in the power of witnessing
mm.
for you and for
Yeah.
the other person.
Mm. I love that reminder too, that you have the choice.
Yes,
And you discern when the right time is to open up to the people that need to hear it. Because
right,
sometimes there are consequences for speaking a truth too soon. Sometimes
right.
there are consequences for doing it too late. So it's about finding that perfect time and then realizing you can't get it wrong. There is no time that's not going to be perfect if you do go through with it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk about your book as far as a tool for helping people
Hmm.
become the best they can be. Because, to manifest that life, to vision the world beyond the pain that they're in right now. So, what are
Mm.
some of your little expert tips and tools, and how can they use the book in a way that would send them in that direction?
Mm. Oh, I love the fact you mentioned the 12-step program too, because isn't the first step being willing to hand the power over to a higher power or the problem over to a higher power?
I didn't understand higher power until I was in a 12-step program. I was like, huh? It just didn't. I was angry at God. And
Yeah.
I personally was in a meeting, and a rabbi's wife was there, and she's saying, I am so angry with God. And I was like, oh my gosh, she didn't get struck dead. And that opened up the world for me because I was afraid. I had that image of that, this
Yes.
God's punishing and this and that. And so I ended up, going home and writing a one ad for God, the God of my heart that I needed.
Oh.
And that was like such an opening, but I didn't understand, and
Mm.
so I think that's so when you say dear universe, I get that, but not everybody else
And and
understands.
that's where I'm going with that. It's like that's what the book's about. It's about opening up that connection point to remind you that you have that power within yourself. And it's a door that goes both ways. So the universe is there to hold your energy, like this beautiful, creative, infinite field that can reflect back to you what you want to heal, what you want to create, all of those things. So we live in like this big mirrored universe. And so that higher power, when you have that connection point, especially on a daily basis for 365 days, like my latest book, it creates momentum. It builds faith. And I think that especially in these times where as women we are up against these diabolical forces that are wanting to oppress us in the most unspeakable ways, actually. I can't go into a lot of detail, but let's just say this year has tested that theory to its absolute limits. Like I've been silenced in many ways. There are things that I can't talk about publicly, but it's like this. How do I put this? When you rise above it with the right energy, that the lower negative energy, the patriarchal forces that they can't touch us. But you have to rise above it because everything that manifests is an energetic match. And so our role is not to match that. And that's what the book teaches you. It teaches you the power of presence. It teaches you to look for beauty everywhere. It teaches you to feel that sense of gratitude even when it's tough, even when times are tough. And so, I've had to put my hand up as a teacher to do the hard work this year. It's been what I call a trial by fire, a deep initiation of like living this big fancy life to now contracting. But as I've said in many of the interviews I've done, nothing in life comes without a contraction first and then the expansion. And so we don't often stop to see which season we're in, or even which moment we're in, whether we're contracting or whether we're expanding.
I love that. I love that. So I have to tell you something. I recorded one of you had some manifestation affirmations that I
Mhm.
recorded on my phone years ago, and I almost listen to that daily. I tend to take it to the beach because I that's where I feel closest to my spirit is at the beach.
Mhm.
And so I'll go and I'll just turn on that, after I've sat in the
Mhm.
quiet for a while. So tell people about what are affirmations and why they're important, and because you're a master at it.
Oh, thank you. So it's affirmations are really programming your subconscious mind. They're kind of priming your energy field to expect good things to happen. And I think the more, it's all about inputs. The more you put into your system good things and the belief that good things are going to manifest for you, the more it happens. And so this is where it gets tricky though, because people have been coming at me like, well, you're a manifesting teacher. How did you manifest, a second divorce and all of the things that are going on right now? But it's part of it. And we've got to move with the affirmations as they're moving through because sometimes things have to break down before they get better. But affirmations are a way to keep you on that track, to create that connection with God, with source energy, with the universe, and to trust that everything that is appearing in your reality is meant for you.
I love that. And because too often we want to shut down. Either it's too bad or
Yeah.
and it's like I can't deal with that. And I know as an artist, you understand kitsugi, I think is how you pronounce it. It's a
Mhm.
Japanese art form
Yeah.
where when something breaks the pottery, they cover it with gold. You know,
Hmm.
so and that's what our lives are. Those broken pieces are really images of gold, and
Yes.
you take that for yourself and for the world to share those, and I think that's really important. So,
Yeah, it is. And we can't be afraid to show our humanness because
right,
that's how others learn. And like you said, it's about sharing our stories.
right, right. So let's talk about, I know you've talked about your daily promise. What is the daily promise?
Ooh, the daily promise. The creativity to, is that the one? I think I've made a
So
few
you were
promises.
something you were talking about where it's the daily promise, your frequency reset, and one act of creation every
Hmm.
day. Those were pieces
Yeah.
of your life that were really important to you. And I love the fact because the daily promise was about journaling. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, I do journal. I haven't been doing it as much as I want to lately because I've been obviously promoting the book and doing other
Right.
things. And that's the thing. I think the promise that I've made to myself, at least recently, is to create something every day. And I think that a lot of people don't know that most of the time that I meditate, I'm actually pressing record in front of a microphone and I'm creating something from that. And
Oh,
that's something that a lot of people don't realize, like whether I'm creating a podcast or something like that, it's a transmission that comes through intuitively, and I turn that into my art. And I think that I've made like this switch in my mind um, from teacher to creative. There's something that's changed. It's like I want to create rather than show others how to create. Does that make sense?
oh, totally. I've
Yeah.
I've been both. I hear you, but
Yeah.
there were moments. I had an art school at one point in my life. I did all this, and I started a new series of art for myself, which are round
Hmm.
canvases, and they're
Beautiful.
different, and it's like, oh, this is fun, and I go in and just have fun without any expectation in my art.
Yes.
That is very different for me because I'm a wordsmith, I'm a this, it's all those things. It's like
Yeah.
allowing myself to just be the creator. It
Hmm.
is different, with
It's freeing. It's freeing because, well, for me anyway, in terms of this season of my life, I've written so many books, I've written hundreds of blog articles. I'm always creating something with the written word. But visually, there's something about that paint on the canvas that's so freeing for me right now. And it's healing. And I think that that's also a form of teaching because you're modeling that for other people, that it's almost like permission to be a creative,
right.
permission to create from your heart.
And I believe we're all creative in our essence.
Yeah.
And it's just
Hmm.
we've been told you're not, you can't draw, you can't draw stick figure. That isn't creativity. Creativity is so much more.
Yeah.
It's about how you operate in the world, the garden you plant, the cooking, everything. My
Hmm.
sister is the best cook. She plays with, recipes. That's not my thing at all. you know, but my house is filled with art supplies everywhere you look.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
The joy. There's something about and playing with my grandchildren and bringing them over and we do art together. It's like joy.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not, it is, it's, it's very different. So
Mhm.
yeah. But I love the fact that you're taking this time that of reflection for yourself and allowing yourself to dive deeper into another aspect of you because you've been doing art for a long time. From
Oh, a very long time. And I had
yeah,
the realization the other day that I had my first art exhibition when I was 19 years old. And then the very next year I got pregnant. And then the year after that, I lost that baby. And then I went on to have another baby, my son Thomas, who's now 24. And I think I put my art career on hold. I've always felt like it was selfish to buy paints and canvases and things like that. And I go through seasons. And now that, I don't have my children with me full time right now, they're away for a month and then they're coming back and, like it's a complicated dynamic. But this is the first time I've been allowed to be me since I was a teenager. And now I'm 46 years old. There hasn't been any time that's been longer than 14 days that I've had just to be me.
incredible, incredible.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see what's coming out. When I
Right.
don't have to think about, well, what's for dinner, or I did a load of laundry the other day, and I thought, in my adult life, I've never just put through a load of laundry just for me. I thought this is the most bizarre experience ever to think,
Love
well,
that.
I'm grateful, of course, that I've always had my family around to take care of, but now it's confronting just taking care of me.
Right,
And
right.
so often as women, we don't do that when we should. You need to be able to take care of yourself first. But for whatever reason, I've put myself on the back burner and I'd rather buy art supplies for my kids than art supplies for me.
Okay, okay. So, all right. So, what would you say is if you were, what's one truth you wish every woman could know about her own power?
Oh, that is a powerful question, Ray.
We're
Well,
getting towards the end, so I'm getting to the
okay, yes.
yeah.
No, this is a fantastic question. I believe that well, firstly, women should identify that they have power first and foremost, and then tune into that essence through the lens of everything that they do, through that lens of having and holding that divine feminine power. So it doesn't matter what they do. So they don't have to mimic masculine energy to be powerful.
Mm. And there is a difference. And I think, and that's a hard distinction when, the
Mhm.
doing versus allowing, the flow,
Yes.
control. I mean, those are different pieces of our lives, and
Yeah.
I've been independent a long time. So I still have trouble letting go of control. It's like
Yeah.
myself because I've been independent and and it's like alone and you got to figure it out. It's a different world when you are not responsible on a daily basis for someone else,
Yeah.
in their
It really
lives.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So women just need to remember their power and use it because there's no point having power if you don't use it.
I love that. Okay, so what do you hope readers are going to carry with them after spending a year with Dear Universe?
Just again remembering their own power, and I think that that's the point, and remembering that we are co-creating with the divine force, with the source energy, that it's not just within us, it's around us, it's in everything, it's in the people that you don't like very much, it's in the it's in the and that's the hard part, like that's the advanced manifestation technique, but God, source energy, the divine, it's in everything, and that's what I want people to remember at the end of the book.
Okay, so why don't you tell people how they can find the book, get a hold of you, find out some of your courses that you can share some of this in more depth.
Okay, so to get the book, this book here, you can go to dearuniverse365.com and you can purchase it from all of the usual retailers, Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Target. And you can go to sarahprout.com and that's where I've got all of the information about my courses. Well, not so much courses anymore. I do audio journeys and meditations.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Everyone, take advantage of it. Sarah, thank you for this incredibly insightful and heart-opening conversation. Your wisdom and practical guidance are just a gift for me always, and hopefully for this community that's growing and listening to you. And again, if this is interests you, go buy Sarah's book. Dear Universe 365, a year of mini meditations to manifest your best life. And if you want more deeply nourishing conversation, other tools for your own journey, please join me. I invite you to my Substack community, Creative Activists Turning Pain to Purpose. Thank you again, Sarah, for being our guest today.
Thank you so much, Rae. It was lovely to connect.